Hey there, and welcome to all you curious minds out there to another episode of Flying Chariots The Rise. Tonight we have the honor of hosting Anja Schäfer, a powerful storyteller and a spiritual guide whose book Venus and I explores pervasive topics of spiritual awakening, transformation of Earth, and the power of love. In a journey that combines personal experiences with cosmic revelations, Anja shares insights gained from deep connection to Venus and the enlightened masters who have gone before us. The book explores key concepts such as ascension, twin flames, and the multidimensional aspects of consciousness, making it a rich tapestry of spiritual exploration. She not only speaks of individual enlightenment, but instead weaves a narrative that connects personal growth to the broader transformation of our planet. Tonight, we are eager to explore the knowledge that lies within Anja's book. We will also learn about Anja's encounters with eminent characters such as Omnec Onec and Dr. Raymond Keller, and discover how these experiences have shaped a unique perspective. Hello and welcome to all you truth seekers and curious minds out there. Thank you for tuning into a brand new episode of Flying Chariots The Rise. I have a wonderful guest with me today, and I'm sure we are going to have a fantastic conversation. Anja and I have had private conversations before, and what she does and says is very exciting. Even if I really do not understand everything, as this is a topic that is beyond my imagination. But it doesn't matter. But now and then I give topics such as this a chance. But let's start slowly. Let's start with Anja introducing herself and giving us a brief insight into her life.
Thank you so much, Daniel, or Daniel, as we would say in English, for having me on your show. I appreciate your invitation. I appreciate your curiosity, your interest, although you admit that you have not understood yet everything, so doesn't matter. As you already said, my name is Anja. I'm German, and I am basically a facilitator for Venusian messages, for Venusian spirituality, and in being in this, by being a kind of a facilitator, my main task at the moment is creating and publishing books in German and English, giving interviews, starting with teachings a little bit, and organizing events in Germany.
Interesting so far. You told me, and you sent me some information about your book, Venus and I. Sounds interesting and sounds a little bit crazy to me, to be honest. But could you give us a brief summary of your book and explain what readers can expect from it?
Yes, sure. You know, Venus and I, of course, I chose the title Venus and I so that so that you can't really know what I mean by that. So it's a kind of it's not accidentally that I chose this title, of course, because you can connect with the term Venus, you can connect many aspects. You can either think of something erotic, you can think of the planet, you can think of astronomy, astrology, and yeah, and those people who know me or who have a little deeper insight also into in what I'm about and what I have been doing my whole life, actually, almost basically now since 30 years, they already know that it is also connected really with Venusian spirituality in regards to the teacher and the author Omnec Onec, who wrote a book called From Venus I Came. And so since I'm connected to that person, she is actually a living being, she is on Earth, and she's a normal woman. The only thing that makes her a little bit different, not so much anymore, but particularly when she started going to public was her awareness, her perception, and her comprehension, her consciousness of everything, of world, God, people, earth, history of the planet. So she has a quite unusual broad perspective on everything, and this is the only thing that makes her kind of different, or that's a little bit different compared to human beings with a more or less normal awareness or consciousness. So this is my background. My background is my connection with that woman, and this is actually basically on the inner more what my book is about. So Venus and I starts with my connection with Omnec and what I have experienced in the last almost 30 years by being connected with her. Yes.
Omnec Onec has been guest in many various TV shows, radio shows over the past over many years. But there's some people out there who don't know who she is. Neither did
Mm.
I know who she was before you told me about her. So who is she? And what has she done?
I can answer this question in various from various perspectives. I can simply say she's a woman. She lives in America. She wrote a book called From Venus I Came, and a second part of her autobiography called Angels Don't Cry, and a third book which is called Handbook of Venusian Spirituality. These are the earthly facts, so to say. And when it comes to the Venusian background, where many, many people have difficulties in with getting it or understanding it, which I completely understand, it's it's a story that sounds like science fiction when you say somebody is not born on Earth. So when she says, when you think of the title From Venus I Came, she means that literally. It's not that she thinks or that she says she dreamt it or that it is a vision, but from her perspective, and I pronounce this really clearly, from her perspective, it's her truth. And it's her story, it's her origin, that she was not born in a physical dimension, but in a higher dimension called the astral dimension, which many people on Earth have a little bit of a feeling for when they think of afterlife stuff or ghost stuff or some things that are not so much of this world, but from this world beyond the world. And many people who have an interest in finding out what's beyond the what we are taught, kind of, what we are taught at school. And so this is what I mean, the normal stuff. You're not taught any kind of mysticism or parapsychological stuff. This is more the field that is not so popular or that has not been so popular in the last, particularly in the last thousands of years, because we have gone through quite a limited way of education, particularly at school. And so what Omnec brought, or what she's about, is really opening up the mind and opening up consciousness, finding out more about the universe, about ourselves and our connection, our true heritage and our true essence as who are we really? Who am I really? Am I just this physical body? Am I just this Anja that's sitting here and talking? Or is there more about me? And this is actually where we can find out a lot more by listening to her. That's where it starts.
You're talking about an astral level or astral realm
Yeah.
when it comes to Venus. And we here on Earth also talk about astral levels, astral realms, astral dimensions, whatever you want to call it. So, is there a difference between the astral realm on Venus or around Venus or whatever you want to call it and our astral realms?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And since I always do my best to answer as authentic and as honest as possible, I can try to answer this question from my perspective and from my feeling, but not really from experience, because I have not personally experienced the astral dimension of Earth, not consciously. I'm not really traveling or not really consciously exploring these dimensions. You know, my access is slightly different. It's more from a heart, from a soul, from a more deeper perspective that I am exploring the teachings that Omnec brings. So I'm not a conscious out of body experiencer or traveler, you know. I'm not consciously trying to travel, or I have not been training myself to do out of body travel and all these kind of things. I know that this exists, or remote viewing. There are so many techniques that you can even learn and that you can really try to find out more about when it comes to exploring the other dimensions. So, and I have also not personally, not consciously been on Venus, you know, so I can't really say, well, this is what what is the difference really? But what I can remember is that Omnec writes about the astral and the dimensions on Venus, and that she, before she was brought to Earth, so according to her and her knowledge, her story, she manifested a physical body, a physical self on Venus in a transfer station, so that she could be brought to Earth at all, and so that she could be snuggled into our society. So according to her story, she lived on the astral and then manifested a physical self shell, a physical vessel, a physical body around herself, you know, and then she was brought to Earth. So before she went through this transfer on Venus, she describes in her autobiography that she was taken on a kind of a sightseeing farewell trip on Venus, where she was shown the dimensions that exist on Venus. And she says in her book that she was shown the lower astral dimensions as well as the higher astral dimensions, and that all dimensions have various layers of frequency. It's not really clearly separated one from the other, but it's a range of frequencies. It's like within music or like in colors. There's just a big everything, you know, and there's like 50 Shades of Gray. We know all this title. There's not just one gray, there's 50 shades, and there's not one red, but there's 50 or 500 reds. And it's the same with frequencies. It's the same with sounds. It's the same with tones, with everything. And so according to the consciousness of a being, it resides in a certain range of frequency. It's on the earth, it's the same. It's everywhere, it's the same. It depends on what we think and how we feel and what we are mostly identified with, where we are, where we exist, and what we surround ourselves with. So if we are, for example, completely identified with negativity, with fear, with horror movies, or with, you know, all this total negative stuff, of course what we experience is exactly that, because this is what we resonate with. And when we are consciously identified with love thoughts, loving thoughts, accepting thoughts, high level consciousness thoughts, of course we raise our vibration, and of course then we experience other dimensions. And since Venus went through an ascension cycle millions of years ago, as far as I heard and as far as Omnec teaches it, they exist on a higher level of frequency than the Earth in general at the present moment. However, the Earth is also going through an ascension cycle, and that's where we are heading towards. And that's why the Venusians are among us, to give us a little bit of a training and help us to remember who we really are and what we can look forward to while changing our frequency consciously ourselves. So to wrap this up, in my understanding, Venus and Earth have astral dimensions, yes. However, on Venus, as far as I have learned, the higher frequencies are already higher than on the Earth, but we are currently changing and will get there. Does it make sense?
Kind of.
Kind of.
I'm being honest, since I'm a guy who has nothing to do with spirituality, or let's say not much, I'm having a hard time processing what you just told me. But it's interesting though. And tell me, was Omnec Onec your entrance into spirituality, or how did your own very own spiritual journey start?
Oh, that's good that you're asking this because this is exactly why I wrote my book. You know, my book is not a biography about Omnec. Omnec is just part of my own journey. So my spiritual journey personally started, of course, very early. However, my first awakening, my first spiritual awakening happened when I met Omnec. So I was already, from my perspective, I already was born with the intention to awaken in this lifetime to my true identity of who I really am. And so my quest, my first 30 years of my physical existence were a big struggle because I always had just this feeling of not fitting in, not finding what my heart is longing for. So all over the place, I fell in love with somebody and the love was not reciprocated, for example. So this started my journey, my quest for figuring out is there something wrong with me or what's going on? Why do others have partnerships and marry and have children and family? And in my life, nothing is kind of working out. Plus, I don't find there is no job that I'm really interested in. What I'm really interested in, and this began when I was 15, was astrology. I already started, reading my first astrological book when I was 15 and started my esoteric interests. I was in Berlin, so I was lucky because in the big city there were big esoteric stores already available. You know, it just began at that time that these stores opened, that literature was published and so on. And these were my favorite places already when I was 18, 19, 20. I was always looking in these shops and buying books and reading books. But I was always very unhappy because I did not find in this life and in this world what I was looking for. I was really a searcher. And when I met Omnec, I started to find what I was looking for. And this is when my real journey began, I would say. I was kind of prepared in the first 30 years. And when I saw her for the first time in a TV interview, I think it was 94, all my little gizmos went on and I was like, there's somebody who knows what I'm looking for. And then it it started to become deeper.
How did you get in contact with Omnic?
I read her book. So she was sitting in a TV. I think I already told you, or maybe I shared some of these old shows. Most of these shows I'm not allowed to share because they are copyrighted. I'm still trying to find a solution, Daniel, as seriously, because it's really good stuff. I mean, it's interesting stuff. You know, she's sitting there, really shining, blonde, pretty, beautiful person. She was young and she was giving all these interviews in German shows, in German TV shows. And she was in magazines and everywhere. And she promoted her book because she was guided to publish her book in German at that time. It was already guided, that she was kind of imported from Germany, from the USA, and that she was kind of right away guided to find a publisher, and the publisher published her book. And this is why she was in these TV shows. And I turned the TV on one day, I think in 94, 95, sometime, something like that. And she sat there and she was just saying a few things like I never heard before. Intelligent things, you know, calm things like imagination is the key to creation. And she really has this talent of putting simple things in a few words, you know. She's not rambling on and getting on people's nerves with too many words. She just sat there and answered really quietly all these questions. And she looked so authentic, and she really, it was just having an impact on me. And it impressed me. And then I bought her book. And 3 years later, it's all in my book, you know, the whole story. It's quite the way it unfolded. It took a while. I mean, I had my first inspiration through this TV channel. And 3 years later, I opened my own esoteric bookstore in Bavaria. And then I ordered her book and read it. So 3 years after. And then it struck me again. I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. This story is really interesting. I need to see this woman. And then I contacted the publishing house and they told me, yes, she's here. She's in Germany. And if you have a bookstore, we can also come and she can come to your place and she can come and give a lecture and a workshop in your place. And this was so overwhelming that I kind of almost exploded with happiness at that time. I did not know that I can be so happy. So this is exactly how it started, you know, my own experiences. It was not that I admired her or that I never put her on a pedestal or something like that, you know. I was not never from the beginning making a religion or some belief system out of that. It was my own experience that was so deep because I was so happy and I was so interested and I was so fascinated by this story of her life on Venus and how the astral level of Venus functions and how they live there, how they manifest their lives, their love, their consciousness, all this kind of stuff. It was like triggering memories within my heart, within my soul. I thought this is exactly what I'm looking for. And this is not, I can't find it anywhere here. So who the hell did I get here on this planet when there's somebody writing about something that I feel is my truth and my home? So I need to make this connection. This was for me completely clear that I need to make this connection. It's like, you know, you find somebody from your home and you just want to connect with them because you feel there is some friendship, something you have not in your life. So of course it's clear that you want to see them and meet them. And this is how we were brought together, because then she came to my esoteric bookstore in Landshut in 97.
I mean, you followed your intuition, and your intuition told you that everything Omnec tells you is real. But have you ever considered that she could be someone that only tells a story? A nice story that people like, but it's not real and it's not true.
This There are two from my current perspective and from my perspective, there is at least two ways of looking at things. There is a mental way of looking at things, and the mind always asks these kind of critical questions and doubting questions and considering and comparing. You know, this is mind stuff from my, as far as I understand myself and my various functions meanwhile. So mind is one function. And intuition, as you called it now, is the other function. It's a different function. I'm sure there are more functions, you know, there are also sensual functions. It's what you hear, what you feel, what the skin tells you. You can have sensual functions. You can have goosebumps, for example. You can have excitement. You can have rapid heartbeat. You can have physical functions. So, and you have emotions. You can cry or you can laugh. You can feel fun or joy, and you can feel sadness. So there's a human self consists of so many different ways of experiencing things. And this question, like the way you ask it right now, is of course a mental question. It's completely normal. Everybody does that. I do that too. However, when it comes to Omnec, it was kind of from the beginning, there was a part of me that said, I don't care. I don't care if it's true or if it's not true, or if she just invented this story or if she made it up. I just love it. I just love this person. I just love this story. And I choose to have the freedom to believe what I want to believe in. So this was the first thing I believe that I learned from Omnec was, or that she kind of not, I did not learn, and I remembered. I remembered that I have the freedom of choice. I can decide what I want to believe in and what feels true for me and what feels not good for me. I have the right to decide for myself. So it's like, like Pippi Langstrumpf. I don't know if there is an English term for Pippi Langstrumpf. It's like I'm creating the world the way I love it, because I have the right to be happy. I have the right to choose what I love. And having remembered this freedom, this was the thread that I started to follow instead of starting to follow the doubtful or the questions thread, like many other people did, because I know so many people, Daniel, who even loved Omnec for a while and then decided to step out of the picture because they didn't believe her anymore, or I could tell you stories for weeks and for hours what I experienced personally, because I always understood as well why people kind of stepped away. There was, for example, I can give you one example. I remembered, it's probably 20 years ago also, when people from Paris invited her to come to Paris because they were so excited about Omnec and her story and her book. They wanted to make her known in France, and they wanted to publish her book in France and bring her to the public and stuff like that. So they invited her personally for a personal getting to know, a personal meeting, so that they could discuss everything in person. And at that time, later on, I would not have, in quotes, allowed it anymore that she goes by train alone to Paris. It was really something that I felt bad a little bit afterwards, because I could not foresee what she had to go through. Because these people, as soon as they met her personally, started to reject her. For them, she was too glamorous because she used makeup. For them, she was not real anymore because of some kind of behavior that they didn't like. They disliked certain things that they noticed from Omnec during the personal encounter, and before they were just fascinated by her presence because they didn't know her personally, physically. And then it was over. And she said, when she told me they put me, she was there for a couple of hours and they put her right away back into a train and sent her back. And she said she just saw the tip of the Eiffel Tower. That was all that she saw from Paris, because they wanted to get rid of her right away. So these kind of things happened all the time since I have been close with Omnec. And I'm one of the very, very, very little people, not little people, but a very, very small crew of people who kind of stayed with her, who stayed close to her, because I never allowed my mind or my critical thinking to overpower my love for her and my love for the story and my own mission, of course, that's deeply connected with that. So that always had priority and not the critical thinking.
Interesting. What you just told us is typical human behavior. You see someone on TV or in the movies and you say, "Oh, he's my star and I love him so much." And you pin all these posters on the wall and these pictures everywhere. And one day, like you said, maybe you have a meet and greet and see this guy or woman in person, and then you notice there's some things, yeah, that are different from the picture in the movie or
Exactly.
yeah,
Because you're building up all these expectations,
yeah.
and somebody like Omnec, she's really a big projection screen. People project everything on her. She is nuts. She is a saint. She's an angel. She's a devil. She is mad. She is insane. She made the story up. People throw every kind of stuff on her. And and for her, it was always, she was always just herself. She never changed her story, if you will, she never ever, you could ask her this for millions of times. She would always say the same story. She never kind of stumbled all of a sudden. Oh my good, scratching my head. What was it again? I said I came from Venus. Oh my goodness, I think I have lost my mind. I think I have to make, or I have to change my story now because I'm not successful, She never made money. People even still think that she's rich. It's so ridiculous. People think all this kind of crap about Omnec, that she is so and so and so, and she's nothing like that, She's just herself. And she really is one of the most courageous souls, from my perspective, that is walking around on earth, coming down with such a story, being among us with this story for her whole life, and never changing anything, and really living with all this crap and stuff and shit that people have been throwing on her since she published, since she came out to the public.
When we started, I did ask you a question. I asked if there's if the astral realm of Venus is different from the astral realm on Earth. And I think with what you told me, I came to the conclusion if there's such a thing as astral realms, I don't know. It might be the same, but you have to know how to connect to it. So w- why why does she tell us she's from Venus then, from the astral dimension of the Venus, if everything is the same and we use the same astral realm to connect with each other?
Well, in my understanding, every planet has their own other dimensions.
Hmm.
So the Earth astral is a different astral than the Venus astral.
But they can connect if you know how to, so to
I'm
speak.
sure they are connected. Of course, everything is interconnected, especially when it comes to the higher dimensions, of course. However, as I already tried to, you know the film, right? I mean, the German title is Hinter dem Horizont, and the English title is different. It's the film with Robin Williams where he is dying, and then he finds himself in the astral dimension, and then he even tries to rescue his wife who committed suicide out of grief. She committed suicide, and she lands in the lower astral. So in this film, it's quite nicely presented, the various frequencies and the different worlds, the different astral worlds. There's a
Interesting.
higher where everything is colorful and people are flying around and people manifest their cups and people manifest their tea and everything, and they can just float around, and everything is paradisical and beautiful. And the lower astral where there's the bird spiders crawling around and there's just spider webs and grief and sorrow and aloneness and solitude and everything. It's all depending on the personal consciousness where you're finding yourself.
Yeah. And I know that there was a question which is hard to answer, or maybe impossible to answer. I know that, and my intention was not to put you in a corner. So, but this is just how my brain is wired, and I
Sure,
yeah,
fine.
and I have
I do my
questions like
best.
that.
I do my best to help us exploring more of the universe. Of course, it's different to answer questions when you don't really know it, I mean, if I knew from experience how the astral level of Venus is compared to the astral level of Earth, I could certainly give a better understanding or a better answer. However, if you ask why Omnec came from the astral Venus, is that the question that you asked? Why she's talking about Venus and not of Earth?
Yeah, why she's using the term or the name Venus if the astral realm is all the same and everywhere the same, since we're living in the same, we all share the same universe, right? Even
Yeah,
if there would be life on Mars or even
yeah.
Moon or Saturn, doesn't matter. We would all share the same space. We would live in the same space, right? And we would use and one would think we use the same astral realms and live in a and yeah, we all have the same connection with each other, no matter which planet we live.
Well, as far maybe it makes sense to say that the higher astral where Omnec says that she lived and what her book and her story is all about, it's a higher level of consciousness and of frequency that, in my understanding, is not on the Earth yet, because the whole Earth, the Earth as a planet, has been going through a very low consciousness, it has been a host to host low frequency. It is, I mean, this is exactly what I have learned, or what is in my understanding. The Earth is a younger planet, or the planet in our solar system that is still going through their ascension cycle. On the other planets in our solar system already went through that. So they have astral societies. I don't know nothing about the other planets. Don't ask me about Mars and Mercury and stuff like that. I just know what I know from Venus, from Omnec, of course. So according to her story, the other planets already went through their ascension cycles and already have societies and life on higher frequencies. And so, and the Earth, this is where we are going now. So she can't really have come from Earth or from an astral plane of the Earth, because this higher consciousness level has not existed yet, but probably in the future, because this is exactly why these the benevolent extraterrestrials are among us, to bring, and not only them, but also the frequencies, the UFOs, the spaceships, and everything is here. The benevolent ones, I'm only talking about the positive ones, who are helping to bring to raise people's consciousness on the Earth, and also Earth itself, so that Gaia, Earth, the planet Earth, as a being, because it's a living being, that it also raises its frequency, because this 3D consciousness, or this lower level consciousness, being a host for all this negativity, it's the process that's coming to an end right now. So this is ending, and we are going through the ascension cycle. That's why we have so much help and so much support from other dimensions.
For me as a non-spiritual person, it's hard to wrap my mind around all these things, but I'm very triggered when I hear words like consciousness or frequency. And not too long ago, I have seen a video. Uh, it was a science video, and they showed all these planets in our solar system, and they told us how every planet has its own sound and frequency. It's a very interesting video. Maybe if I can find it, I will add it to the video description, guys. And
Mhm.
yeah, it was interesting to listen to all these different sounds these planets produce, however they do it. I can't remember what they explained in the video, but it was interesting to listen to all these different sounds and, of course, frequencies. This is why I'm triggered when I hear the word frequency coming from you in the context of Venus and all these realms. Because we know, um, let me drift away here for a second. I know this guy. His name is Gunnar from Austria, and we had him on this podcast here too. And he explores the ancient resonance chambers in Austria. He found them, which is very interesting. He found them under an old house, a very old house, and those are underground tunnels or called it caves, I don't know, man-made, of course. And if you sit in the main chamber and produce a sound, a deep sound like a throat singing or a deep tone with your guitar, something like that, this a frequency is coming up that you almost can't stand. You can produce frequencies that make you go crazy, and you can produce frequencies that really calms you down. And nobody really knows what these chambers are for. And if you look at these chambers and see how they are made, they have they I don't know how they put these stone pipes in the wall and connect chambers with these pipes, and the acoustic goes through these pipes, and you can sit in this chamber and feel like this, and this chamber feel like that. So it's pretty crazy, and this is yeah, this is very interesting. Frequencies can influence your brain and your mind, and maybe can produce paranormal or yeah, I don't know, strange things. Let's put it this way. This is why I believe in things like astral realms and frequencies.
Very interesting. Very interesting. You know, you probably also have heard of this. How did they build these the pyramids, for example? And I'm quite sure. I mean, this is what I can imagine, that it can have a lot to do with frequencies, because frequencies, sounds, can really have a tremendous effect on the consciousness, on matter. I believe, I mean, this is physics, Daniel, really, it's physics, that every atom, when you when you sing or when you produce a sound, it really causes a vibration of the electrons, of the protons. And when you accelerate it changes, it changes matter. So eventually, even sounds, I mean, this is part of Omnec's teachings, for example, mantras, singing mantras. It's ancient stuff from ancient India, singing mantras to bring yourself into calmness, or to manifest things, or to manifest a certain consciousness, or to raise your awareness. Knowing people, enlightened people, have always used sound. And this is one of the sound and light. And this is one of the main teachings. This is actually the essence of Omnec's teachings, is that the universe is created out of light and sound.
I'm pretty sure if you can break a glass with your voice, then it's also possible to move a big rock with certain frequencies. And
Yeah,
if that's possible, you can also put yourself in another state of mind, or put yourself in some kind of astral realm with another frequency. I truly believe that. That is very.
absolutely. You can, this is exactly what, I mean, according to Omnec's teachings, or what she is teaching, is what soul travel is all about. It's really using a certain mantra, a certain sound, a certain frequency, while visualizing a certain color, and you are not going anywhere. It's just that you're raising, or that you're changing the frequency of your consciousness. It's all happening at the same time, at the same moment, at the same spot, in the same place. It's everything here. It's like time traveling. I mean, it's as if I'm now changing my awareness, and I'm sitting here, and all of a sudden, you know, this film Time Machine, right? When they're sitting in this time machine, and it's funnily done, but how should you present it? How else should you show it? You know, you're changing the clock, or you're changing the calendar to whatever 2000 years prior, and all of a sudden I'm sitting here. Of course not here, because this is a building, and I would not sit in the building. I would probably sit on the floor, and maybe there's some camels around me, or maybe I would sit in an ocean. I don't know what was here millions of years ago. So everything basically is every time, it's all the same at the same time. There's a, you know, there's a certain connection, a certain frequency when you are there. This is exactly like with the Akashic records. It's just a library of information. And when you access it with a certain technique or with a certain sound, with a certain frequency, by accessing it, you can read information, and you can have access to unlimited information. And this is, the mind, of course, is extremely limited. And the mind here on the earth is not only limited, it also was manipulated and controlled by certain factors in the last thousands of years. This is what I have no doubt about, because I know this from experience. And so I must raise beyond my own mental limitations to really explore who I really am and to start exploring the universe. So the mind is super limited, but the brain has a higher capacity as soon as we allow ourselves to have access to access higher consciousness, and sound is one door to that, I'm sure.
I do believe so too. Talking about Venus, talking about the actual physical planet Venus, not some kind of astral realm, are there specific qualities or energies associated with the planet Venus, maybe in an astrological context?
Astrology is again something else.
What
I mean, the physical Venus and the astrological Venus and the Venus that I'm, and the astral Venus where Omnec comes from, these are three different areas that to talk about.
I'm asking if you are aware of, for example, they say moon influences us. Moon influences our planet a lot.
What is your background of what is your personal astrological background, so that I know what we are talking about a little better?
I don't have any astrological background. I'm just curious, and but basically I don't know nothing. So I just want to know if Venus is said to have an influence on us on Earth, the human beings or whatever. Just like
Not causally. I mean, see, this is why I was asking. This is again something that is quite interesting, that could be quite interesting for some people who are not so, who also have a critical view on astrology. So my statement basically is astrology is not talking about influences, not talking about influences, but talking about synchronicities and about alignment. So it's a vertical way of thinking. It's a totally different topic. When I started studying astrology when I was 15, I already knew intuitively that it's not about influence. It's not about energies that have influences or that are causing something. No. For me, astrology has always been nothing else but a clock when it comes to time. It's just showing energies. It's showing various aspects or frequencies, whatever, but it is not influencing. So this is my statement, my personal way of looking at it. So when it comes to the question, does the astrological Venus have an influence on us or on Earth? I would say no.
Mhm.
No.
Okay.
And so if somebody, for example, tells me, oh, I feel a connection to Venus too, Venus is my ascendant, or it has an important, it's an important place in my birth horoscope, for example, I don't say it, but I think I don't care. Your Venus, everybody has a Venus somewhere in their horoscope, but whether it has nothing to do, with Omnec or with our teachings, or the Venusian teachings have nothing to do with the astrological Venus. That's my opinion.
Mhm. Very interesting indeed. Let's change the topic for a second. I saw you talking about the disc of Phaistos.
Yeah, my friend, he's here. He is. Look.
Yeah, yeah, I got a replica of the disc of Phaistos. It's a very interesting artifact. Um, I don't know much about it. I've seen it before. I know that it was discovered in, I don't know, 1908 or something
Mhm.
on the island of Crete.
Mhm.
I know that it has 240 characters engraved, something like that, or 241. Um, and people do not know what they mean
Yeah.
because there's no context really, and they can't, yeah, they can make out what this thing is about. So, what do you know about it, and where's the connection with the things you do?
It's so, I love this question. You know that I spoke with about the Phaistos Disc elaborately in my discussion with Barbara, right, in the German podcast.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And okay, so the story is quite big. The facts that you just, so there's different boxes. So for box number one, what you just said, the facts are completely accurate. It's an archaeological find. It was found in, I believe, 1907 or 1908 in southern Crete in the Phaistos um, palace. It's just ruins there. It's, it's just stones and old rocks. And it was probably quite soon brought to the archaeological museum in Heraklion, and there it is still exhibited permanently. So this artifact or this replica that I have here is quite the same size as the original is exhibited in a glass box in Crete. And yes, so there are symbols engraved. No, it's not engraved, it's stamped. So this is another fact that belongs into the fact box, that it is made of clay. And obviously the being or the person, the human being, whoever made it, prepared little stamps. It must have been really something very tiny, and it's something very interesting to think about, to wrap your mind around it, that somebody really created these little stamps and put them into the Phaistos, into the disc in wet clay. And so you have both sides are different. There are some symbols the same on both sides, and some are totally different. And there are also sometimes little um, um, separations. So it looks like could you could imagine it's like words or it's like phrases. They're separated, and it's in spiral form. And people can, of course, if they want to study it by just looking at it. There are photos everywhere on the internet, also on my website. You can just print them out and look at it. So this is the fact box. And then the archaeological or the decipher question, what is it? There are books written about the Phaistos disc. There are, of course, people since more than 100 years trying to decipher it. And everybody finds out something else. Somebody says, well, it's a big whatever novel, it's a calendar. Everybody sees something different in it. And my understanding or my personal view is everybody is right and nobody is right. Because from my personal experience, and this is again something, it's like with Omnec, I write in my book about it as my second initiation. My first personal initiation, spiritual awakening, was through Omnec. And the second that I experienced was triggered by the Phaistos disc. Because, and here it comes something very spiritual, be prepared to what I'm just about to say. It opened my third eye. So there came a ray of light out of a poster with the Phaistos disc, and I felt it physically that there was a ray entering my third eye area, and it opened. And in that moment, I just saw light. It was like all blocks were gone. My complete brain, my mental area was gone. So you could literally say you lose your mind. there is a funny saying from Omnec: if you think you are enlightened, you have lost your mind. But never mind, leave your mind behind and then you are enlightened. So from my personal experience, the Phaistos disc cannot be deciphered because it is multidimensional, because the being who created it had a higher awareness and had a high consciousness and created the Phaistos disc knowing that Earth would go through a lowering, a degradation of consciousness, and that it would fall back into the hands of other souls, like myself, for example, probably thousands of years later, for triggering a remembrance, a memory, and a reawakening. This is big to digest, I know.
Yeah, it is indeed.
I'm sorry.
No worries. Whenever I see artifacts like that, I wonder, and I've seen more artifacts just like this. I've seen some from Mexico also with crazy engravings or stamps, as you said. Um, and I always wonder why they chose this shape, this disc shape. That's the first point. I wonder why. Why would you choose this shape and not let's say the shape of a piece of paper, something like that? Why you would choose a disc shape? And why is there no context? I don't know. It's crazy. It's very interesting
What do
artifact.
you mean with context?
Yeah. Um, there's no contextual information on it. Um, that makes it hard to guess what its original meaning is. So it's completely open for interpretation. And
Well, as I said, this is again you are again asking the question from the mind perspective, which is completely clear. Everybody asks that. And since I experienced it, I know the answer, but I don't know the mental answer. I just know the soul answer. So the soul answer, as I tried to say, is that it is a memory chip. It was created to trigger memories in those souls who feel a connection to it, and obviously I'm one of them. Probably I'm not the only one. I don't know about others who experienced similar or the same awakenings as I did, but in my personal life it is life changing, and I don't care about any kind of decipherment or meaning, or whether it's a square, or whether looks like a cookie, or whether it could be an elephant, it could be anything. It doesn't matter, because what for me only matters, it's just like with Omnec, it's the energy, it's the information, it's the message that I received, and it triggered a tremendous life-changing experience when I came across my Phaistos disc. Because what I experienced before, during the awakening, during the third eye opening, and afterwards, it's all in my book actually, and this is not to make advertisement. It's because it's just so much. I needed 25 years to digest all that, because I received such a load of information. Because it is, for me, it is an information bearer. It's a bearer of information. It's like a computer chip, you know. A computer chip also bears, it can hold so much information on such a little tiny space. And this is exactly what it is. It's just that it's not containing mental information for the mind, but it contains spiritual information for the soul. So it causes a soul awakening, a soul memory.
yeah, interesting. I'm open for the idea, of course. And I also think this could be a very subjective perception.
Sure, it's my
Yeah.
my subjective experience. Nobody else can verify that, and I cannot prove it. And I feel it's like with all the stuff that I'm doing, all the books and the events and everything that I'm doing, and exactly why I'm sitting here talking, and my whole existence is just about being myself. It's just about memorizing who I truly am and being happy. That's my soul's purpose. So whether people like me or not, whether people question what I'm saying or not, I don't care. I just hope they don't put me on any pedestal either, because I know what Omnec went through, and this is something that's really not so nice, you know, when people start projecting all the all this stuff on you. And now that I'm going to public more and more, being following Omnec's footsteps in a way, you know, I'm already starting to experience similar things, not as heavy as she did. Of course not. I'm not her, and I'm myself, and we have now a different time already, you know. She already was a very courageous front runner. When she started to go to the public in the 90s, she was really confronted with all kind of ridiculous stuff, and people ridiculed her all the time. It was really a nightmare. I mean, I alone for that, you know, even if she now came towards through the door and said, you know what, Anja, I'm everybody believed me. They are all stupid, you know. I just invented this story to make myself important. And I would just say to her, you know what, you did a good job. I don't care anymore. I support you anyway. I love you anyway, and I love your books anyway. It doesn't really, it absolutely doesn't matter, because the only thing that matters is what people experience. And when people experience love, consciousness opening, inspiration, enthusiasm, joy, happiness, something that really has a tremendous effect on their lives, an impact on their lives, that causes them to explore consciousness, to explore their own life, or to overcome fears, to overcome doubts, to overcome problems, you know, to find healing and everything. It's all worth it. It's all beautiful.
Yes, I think I understand. And even if the disc of Phaistos turns out to be a hoax one day, or maybe they find something that explains the disc of Phaistos, but you took from it what you got, and
Exactly.
it doesn't
And
matter what it really is.
Daniel, there's always people coming up with new ideas and with new decipherments and with new you know, when somebody says, oh, somebody now they found it, you know, now they know what it means, and I can only, okay, next. I don't care, because I know it doesn't matter what some mind tries to decipher, can never have this kind of impact on me, compared to my own experience as a soul awakening. That's for me all that counts, not what some archaeologist says or not says.
Mhm. Yeah, interesting. We're almost have come to an end, but we can't end this episode before we haven't talked about another interesting figure connected to all this, and his name is Dr. Raymond Keller.
Mhm.
Maybe, yeah, I think
Yeah.
you can tell us more about Dr. Keller than I could. You're deeper into his story, so let us know who he is and what he's doing.
Oh, that's the German book. I translated his first book into to German. It's a big fat book, as you say, and I'm showing you a picture of him. Is he on the backside? No. Yeah, here's it's just in black and white. That's Dr. Raymond Keller. Um, Okay, again, the fact box. So in the fact box, I would put in that he's going to be 70 years old next summer on July the 4th, when the opening of the From Venus with Love conference is going to take place here in southern Germany. So he's going to come to Germany next year for 4 weeks, I hope, along with Omnec for these two events. In the fact box goes that he wrote 7 books about Venus so far. He is known as, I mean, among us or among those people who are interested in this kind of stuff, known as the Venus historian or the historian of the Venusians. Um, so he is kind of an encyclopedia of ufology, of everything that has to do with Venus on all levels, physical, astronomical, scientific, ufology, conspiracy theories, so there is, I can't say what is all about him because it's just amazing. It's just huge. He's just a huge library of information.
Yeah.
And not only that, what makes him very special and why I also love him and support him so dearly, so much, is that he brought into my personal life the kind of a continuation of my Venus information. So Daniel, you know, I have been with Omnec for, I would say 25, 30 years before Dr. Raymond Keller entered my life. So this is now my personal thing again, you know, because this is for me important that she was always my heart, my teacher, my guide, my spiritual mentor. And when Ray came into my life in 21, he brought another huge download of information and energy and experiences into my life. So he is not only somebody who knows a lot from a mental realm, but he's also an experiencer. He is a contactee. He's a Venus contactee, and he went through UFO sightings, personal encounters with extraterrestrials. And also, he is also a very educated, very much educated also in biblical stuff. So he's also a very known when it comes to history of Jesus and Mary Magdalene and theosophy and stuff like that. So he's really, he knows various levels of information. He's an information bearer as well, just as the Phaistos Disc.
Very interesting. Maybe we can get him for an interview for his channel.
We can.
Yeah, we already talked about it.
And again, Daniel, you know, this is just comes to my mind. I'm just presenting Ray from my perspective, really saying that he is so and so miraculous, wonderful, beautiful. You know, this is my way of looking at him.
Yeah.
Well, when you have an interview chance, you will see. You will see if you can share my perspective or not. You know, this is again something. This is now what I say, but you have to go through your own personal experience with him. And when he comes to Germany, maybe you can meet him.
Of course. I'm excited. Before we end this episode, please tell us about your conferences that you have planned for next summer. There's
Sure. All right. So next year in June and July, two big conferences are going to take place here in Germany. One is the ultimative UFO disclosure conference that's going to take place in Memmingen in southern Germany from June 21st to June 23rd. And there are amazing speakers, among others, Omnec Onec personally, Dr. Raymond Keller personally. They are coming from America. And then we have German speakers, like most of them, the German-speaking world knows, of course. It's Peter Denk, it's Johann Nepomuk Meyer, it's Frank Jacob, Tanja Maidenford, who's going also to speak in English, and I'm going to translate her, and Rainer Feistle. He's an Aldebaran contactee and also a speaker and a conference organizer. So this conference is basically about extraterrestrial and ultra-dimensional contacts, about technology, science, UFO propulsion, spiritual implications of the UFO phenomena. And it's also about the importance of personal disclosure. Because what Dr. Raymond Keller said recently in one of his interviews is something very important. It's that it could theoretically take forever and a day until the governments fully disclose all information. So what's very important is that the individuals also come and unwrap their personal information and disclose what they have experienced, because most certainly there's way more experiences than people can think of. And just because the mainstream media is still making fun of this big topic and this big information, and because there's still this cover up, which is of course, you know, designed, that's the plan, you know, to keep people in a certain range of information field and not to share all the truth with them. So it's important that the individuals share their truth and disclose what they know. And this is also what this conference is mostly about. It's not just nuts and bolts ufology, but it's also personal disclosure, and it combines all these aspects. And these speakers are, of course, well-known researchers. It's filmmakers who have been digging in this information field for decades, like Frank and Tonya, for example. So they will reveal a lot, and it's a beautiful place also for meeting people, because we are having an open foyer that's open for all kinds of guests, and for everybody, kind of. We will have exhibitors, tables, and stuff like that. So it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful experience and occasion. And we will, last but not least, 2 weeks after, we will have the From Venus with Love conference, and that's, if you will, it's more than the spiritual part, or the spiritual conference. It's again also with Dr. Raymond Keller and with Omnec Onec. And these two conferences are a little bit, from my perspective, or that's why the inspiration that I got is like, they're a little bit like brother and sister, or like the male and the female aspect in harmony. Because, and here comes again a different perspective of information, we have been going through a big mental world, controlling and manipulating world since thousands of years, that where also the male part has been dominant, but not a heel male part, but a very also a wounded masculine aspect. There's a lot of healing needs to take place also for the male, for the masculine energy. And the female will come more to the front, but not in terms of, you know what I mean? Not in terms of ruling all of a sudden, but in terms of finding the balance again. So the From Venus with Love conference is mostly the event for bringing balance into the male and into the female aspects within each individual, because what we heal within ourselves, we radiate again to our world and to our surroundings, into our relationships, partnerships, to the loved ones and everything. So it's all about balance. These two conferences are like brother and sister, or like man and woman back in balance. This is one of the spiritual backgrounds behind these events.
Interesting. Sounds very interesting. Guys, you heard it. Get your ticket and come to Germany and visit the conferences.
Yes.
Yeah. Anja, I had a lot of fun talking to you today. It was very, very, very cool talking to you, and a lot of informations that I have to think about. But I had a lot of fun. Yeah.
Me too. Thank you so much for your interest. Thank you so much for having me on, Daniel, and yeah, for everything. It was beautiful. Nice talking to you.
You're very welcome. Please stay with me for 2 more minutes, okay?